Señores y señoras del octavo grado, ¿cómo estáis? Big hola a todos. Soy vuestro maestro, señor Snoddy. Bienvenidos al mes de abril. Abril acaba de llegar, señores y señoras. ¿Cuál es la fecha? Bueno, bienvenidos, welcome, bienvenidos. You might see the verb venir tucked in this word. Bien, welcome, bienvenidos al mes, to the month of abril. Okay, so here's abril. Hoy es miércoles. Es el primero de abril. El primero. All right, so the first day of the month, we don't say es el uno de abril. Instead, we say es el primero de abril. But tomorrow will be el 2 de abril, el 3 de abril, el 4 de abril, etc. Esta bandera, esto es la bandera española. You guys know Spain is getting hit super hard. Well, everybody's getting hit super hard with this coronavirus thing, but the Spanish people have a good spirit, right? And they're going to pull through just as everybody else does. Vámonos, muchachos. Tenemos que seguir aprendiendo. We have to continue learning. And it's fun. I mean, I promise you it's fun. You might not think it's fun, but it is. Es el primero, it is the first, de abril 2020. You know, I'm not going to play any jokes on you guys. I've never really been a big fan of the sort of April Fool's tradition. I think people get enough jokes played on them anyway, so let's just have a normal day, relatively normal day of Spanish without any jokes. Aquí está la agenda. The agenda para hoy. Repasar. Primero vamos a repasar la gramática. So we've gone over a lot of grammar this year, even idiomatic expressions, right? So these are expressions that may not necessarily be translatable word for word from Spanish to English or from English to Spanish. So it's very important to review those things often. So we're going to take a look at that. Vamos a hacer unas traducciones. You guys remember on Wednesdays, normally this was our block period, so we had a little extra time, so we would do a little extra work, and I like to give you guys translation work on that day. So we're going to do a little bit of that today from a distance. From a distance. Estas traducciones van a ser de inglés al español, so I'll give you sentences in inglés, y tú las vais a traducir al español. Las oraciones, the sentences, vais a traducir, are going to translate to Spanish. You're going to do that for me. Por ejemplo, I have to study Spanish a lot. I do, you do, we all do, if we want to be good, if we want to keep up our Spanish skills. ¿Cómo se dice en español? En español se dice, yo tengo que estudiar mucho el español. Yo tengo que estudiar. This is literally, I have to. Yo tengo que. I have to. Yo tengo que estudiar mucho el español. Vámonos. All right, so first set of review problems are idioms with tener. Tener is that verb that means to have, but it's also used to express quite a few things in Spanish. Traduzcan. So this is actually a formal command, command for you guys. We've talked about two commands. This would be like an ustedes command. So please translate. Traduzcan, por favor, las siguientes frases al español. The following, las siguientes frases. La frase, las frases al español. Please translate the following phrases into Spanish. Are you guys ready? Okay. Bueno. Primera frase. We'll do together. Vamos a hacer juntos esta primera frase. Juan is 10 years old. All right, so the temptation is to go, Juan es 10 años. Right? Because in English, this is to be, so why wouldn't we use to be in Spanish? Well, the answer is because for this type of sentence, we use tener. Por ejemplo, Juan tiene 10 años. 10 años. Are you, let's use the to form, the familiar, the informal. Are you warm? Are you hot? ¿Cómo se dice? En español, pues, remember each one of these sentences, guys, for this exercise is going to have some form of the verb tener in it. Muy fácil. La pregunta es, oh, I'm missing my upside down question mark here. Pero la pregunta es, ¿tienes calor? ¿Tienes calor? Okay. I'm not always right, but sometimes I am. Señor Snoddy is right. Okay, and remember this expression to be right or to be correct is tener razón. Very important that you remember this one, okay? Tener razón. So, ¿cómo se dice en español? Señor Snoddy is right, using tener. El señor Snoddy tiene razón. El señor Snoddy tiene razón. I am very sleepy. Very, very sleepy. Yo tengo mucho sueño. Yo tengo mucho sueño. My friend is very thirsty. Now for this one, my friend, remember our possessive adjectives. So first, gotta have to translate my friend. And then don't use ser, don't use estar, use tener to be thirsty, all right? Rack your brain for a second, see if you can remember how to express. He is thirsty in Spanish. Mi amigo tiene mucha sed. Mi amigo tiene mucha sed. All right, how did that go, guys? You remember these? Review is very important. Every so often, probably every week or two, we're going to go over these expressions because of, I don't know, if you guys could take away one thing from Spanish, it would be, well, this would be one of those things. There are multiple things I want you to take away from this year. So here are, here's what we're looking at as far as endings. So you got your singular forms, yo, tú, usted, él, ella, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, ustedes, ellos, ellas. And it's a little blurry, but in bold you have these endings for tener. And tener is one of those boot verbs, so it's got the IE for certain forms like tú tienes, etc. that you have to remember. All right, so that's the verb tener. Tener es un verbo super, hiper, mega importante en español. It's a very, very important Spanish verb. Why? Because you can use it for so many things, including one of my favorites, tener plus que plus infinitive. This formula, let's take a look. We have to focus. So focus, enfocarse, is one of those verbs that has a se attached to it. All right, it's we'll look in more detail at these particular kinds of verbs that have this kind of attachment. But I'll show you how this works with this particular sentence. We have to focus a lot to learn Spanish well. Como se dice en español? Tenemos que enfocarnos. Tenemos que enfocarnos, to focus. All right, so it's reflexive. To focus ourselves. Mucho para aprender bien, to learn well el español. Tenemos que enfocarnos mucho para aprender bien el español. All right, so Focus. Is everybody focused? Also, this one, ser versus estar. Okay? Let's just do a quick review of ser and estar, and let's see if we can pick out which one is appropriate to use in each of these respective sentences. We'll do the first one together. Okay, so we have a choice between somos and estamos. Somos muy cansados or estamos muy cansados. Okay? So take a second and think about that. And we'll get back to it in a second. Here's another one. El profesor no es or no está en la clase. El profesor no es or no está en la clase. Miguel está o es enfermo. El libro es o está azul. Nosotros somos o estamos estudiantes. Estamos muy cansados. So cansados is tired, all right? Another way to say this, right, with tener is tenemos mucho sueño. But you can also use estar here. Estamos muy cansados. So this is a state or condition, all right? I taught it to you guys as a change in state or condition. El profesor no está en la clase. He is not physically located in the class. And for locations, for how you feel and where you are, always use the verb estar. Está en la clase. Miguel está enfermo. Again, it's a state or condition. Miguel is feeling sick, enfermo. Miguel está enfermo. El libro es azul. Because this is a characteristic, right? This is a description of the book. It is blue. All right. El libro es azul. We are students. Okay, so this is more like an occupation. Nosotros somos estudiantes. Questions about that? All right. We also spent quite a bit of time looking at possessive adjectives. And possessive adjectives are the tools we use to show possession. All right, so my, your, his, hers, your, our, y'all's, your. Okay, and you have singular versions and you have plural versions. And where these get confusing is when do you use singular and when do you use plural? And we know that it has to do with what comes after, all right? So if I just wanted to say my student, if I only had one, I would say mi estudiante. But since there are many of you guys, I would say my students. And in Spanish, to say my students, you would say mis estudiantes. All right, so this is sort of modified by the noun that is, or nouns that are being possessed, if that makes sense. Let's do some examples. It's always good to do some examples. All right, so let's take a moment and just look at these. Same kind of exercise. It just says choose the correct possessive adjective in parentheses. Okay, so número uno, vive cerca de something amigos. Número dos, vecinos son simpáticos. Vecinos, these are neighbors. So Spanish for neighbors is vecinos. Coche is a car. So his car is very pretty, or her car is very pretty. Our parents are very good. Y'all's professor is very tall. All right, so take a moment, think about these. Go back to number 1. Vive cerca de your friends. Do you live close to your friends? What do you get? Muy bien. ¿Vives cerca de tus amigos? Vives cerca, close to, cerca de tus amigos. Mis vecinos son simpáticos. My neighbors are friendly. Su coche es muy bonito. Your car is very pretty. Nuestros padres son muy buenos. Our parents are very good. Vuestro profesor es muy alto. Y'all's professor, or you all's professor, your professor is very tall. So I hope these possessive adjectives continue to make sense. Again, the confusion comes in where do we make the possessive? How do we know whether or not to make the possessive adjectives plural? And the answer is based on usually the noun that follows. And if that particular thing is plural, then you are going to make your possessive adjective plural as well. We also talked a little bit about el verbo venir. Present tense conjugations of the verb venir. Venir significa to come. So, vengo a las 7. What would this sentence mean? I'm coming at 7. All right, so there. Venimos a la fiesta de Pablo. We are coming to Pablo's fiesta. Right? La fiesta de Pablo. Pablo's fiesta. ¿A qué hora vienen los estudiantes? ¿A qué hora vienen los estudiantes? What time are the students coming? ¿Tiene sentido o no? Okay, vámonos. So we'll come back here in a second, but these are the present tense verbs. All right, and I just want to make sure that we have a very, very strong handle on the conjugations of regular present tense verbs before we move on to other verb tenses. We've already looked at to commands a little bit. We've looked at the present progressive. But really, before we move on to the preterite or the imperfect, putting verbs in the past tense, I want to make sure that our foundation here is ultra solid. All right, so as you know, there are 3 different types of verbs in Spanish, those that end in AR, those that end in ER, and those that end in IR. All right, and we have to learn lots of these verbs. These are going to be our tools. The more infinitives you can learn, guys, the more tools you'll have in your toolkit to express things, to express yourself in Spanish. Repeat after me. Ayudar, bailar, bajar, caminar, cantar, comprar, contestar, cortar, desear, enseñar, entrar, escuchar, estudiar, explicar, hablar, llegar, llevar, mirar, necesitar, pagar, preguntar, preparar, regresar, terminar, tomar, trabajar, viajar, visitar. That was a little fast, so maybe you couldn't repeat it after me as well as you'd like, but you can always hit pause, remember that. Go a little slower this time. Los verbos ER. All right, first one. Aprender, beber, comer, comprender, correr, coser, creer, deber, esconder, leer, poseer, prometer, responder, romper, vender. And finally, los verbos IR. Abrir, asistir, cubrir, decidir, describir, descubrir, dividir, escribir, omitir, partir, recibir, subir, vivir. That, my friends, is a lot of verbs. All right, but take a good hard look at these and see which ones you recognize and maybe even jot down which ones you don't, okay? All it takes is a quick look up on the internet, and you can find out the meanings of these that you're not familiar with. Also, though, I am going to invite you guys to become my students on a 8th grade Quizlet class. So I'll be the teacher of the 8th grade Quizlet class. I'm going to send you invitations shortly to join that. And I'm going to create for you flashcards with all these verbs on them so that you don't have to do it yourself. Why? Because I'm such a nice guy. All right, so those infinitives you must learn first. And like I said, that's your toolkit. That's going to be your potential for expression increases exponentially the more infinitives you learn. But then you have to put in some dirty work and learn endings for different grammatical verb tenses. All right, but right now we're just focusing on regular present tense conjugations. And as you can see, these are color-coded. So AR verbs over here, we have just an example of a regular AR verb, hablar. So it's an AR verb, ends in AR. And the rest of these are the conjugations. Everything that is in red here are the endings of regular AR verbs in the present tense. Okay, so comer is an ER verb. Here are the endings for regular ER verbs in the present tense. Vivir is an IR verb, and again we have these endings for IR verbs in the present tense. Okay, so this is something that you have to take a good hard look at, and it's something that you probably ought to jot down in your notes, just so you can have these endings handy. You've got to remember AR, ER, and IR endings for present tense verbs. That's it for today's lesson, guys. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for participating. I know this situation is difficult, but every time you guys set aside time to devote to Spanish, I'm very grateful. So what do we got coming up? I'm going to send you an email inviting you to join my Quizlet class, and we'll get that thing underway. And that's about it. No Vocaroo assignment today. Thank you guys for participating in the one yesterday. It was great hearing all your voices singing that beautiful song. De colores. All right, enough of that. Hasta mañana.